You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Filmmaking Conversations with Damian Swaby. Listen to conversations with award-winning filmmakers, directors from the golden age of television, and creatives from the indie film community who continue to inspire the next generation of filmmakers. And now, over to your host, Damian Swaby.
Sam, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Thanks so much for letting me come and speak to you about Filmmaking Conversations, the podcast, and everything that you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. So before we get into things in a deeper way, please do tell us, how did you start this cinema that you have here?
Okay, so 10 years ago, just finished a play in the West End.
Nice.
It's an American play by Mike Batistic, and it failed miserably. So we lost 35 grand at the box office, and I thought, right, where am I going to set up my new theatre? So I thought, right, had to be Crouch End. And so that's what we started. We started looking at buying the lease here, and started building. And a mate of mine came in and he said, why on earth are you setting up a small theatre in the middle of Crouch End? You're not going to make any money. I said, aren't I? And yeah, I think he was right. He said, what we should do is put a cinema here. I said, how are you going to put a cinema here? He says, don't worry, we'll work it out. So we had 2 spaces. Turned out they were 2 sizable screens, 90 seats in each.
Wow.
So we managed to go from a budget of 200,000 to a budget of 750,000. So we managed to get 2 screens in, which was great. And that's when all the fun started.
So you've created a space that serves as both a cinema and a community hub.
Yeah.
How do you balance the 2 roles, and what impact did you think it would have on the local community?
To be honest with you, I mean, in the beginning, it was obviously 2 screens. We had a stage and we could do music, we did cabaret, we did all sorts of kind of live events, and it was quite easy to balance, because with films, you get a film, you have to show it so many times a week, and because we had 2 screens, we were able to, occasionally, once or twice a week, put in a live performance. So it was quite easy. To balance. So, but I think that was the advantages of being able to do that were you could have a far more diverse sort of kind of offer. It wasn't just film, and that became actually far more significant, because a year and a half after we opened, the Picture House literally opened next door to us with a 5-screen cinema. So they had all the films we had. And then some. So having the opportunity to do live stuff enabled us to start building a kind of different audience, which was the most important thing, really. But it also kind of showed us that, having an arts centre in that sense, where you could do other things, was far more sort of kind of interesting than just doing film. And so it was kind of an easy shift. The difficulty is actually finding, a sort of selection of stuff to put on. With film, every week there's another 20 films out to choose from. In those days anyway, not nowadays, but those days there was. So with music and stuff like that, you need to have a constant stream different acts, but it was also a good way of sort of bringing a more diverse audience. Like we'd have Greek nights, for example, Greek music nights, pack it out with or our Greeks. Lots of jazz. We used to do loads of jazz, and it was a really interesting sort of development, really, and which is one that has stayed with us, and hopefully will take into the future, because I think that's the way the market's going, really.
That's all understandable, but what considerations do you take in account with all of the diversity that you have on offer?
It's the same with film, really. You're choosing films that you want to bring a sort of kind of a different group in. That's coming from a Cypriot background. It was and being the outsider constantly. It was really important to sort of kind of focus on certain things, certain groups, because we don't have that in London. We don't have that sort of kind of mixed offer that brings in, whether it be Turkish, Greek, Caribbean, Indian, all these different wonderful groups that we have. It's really difficult, and it's the same with comedy as well. It's very rare that you get sort of black comedians, women. It's usually stand-ups, white stand-up men. So it's really nice to be able to kind of seek them out, but it is very difficult because you tend to find that people of ethnicity don't go into those worlds, film included. You might find a Greek film from Greece, or an Indian film from India, but do you ever get an Indian film set in London? Very rarely.
Very true.
And that's the issue, and quite often, that's what we are. We are an arts centre, and you have to be able to say we are looking to make this industry, to make the arts far more diverse.
So you're originally from Greece?
Cyprus.
Cyprus, sorry. I hope no offence.
No, not at all.
You're originally from Cyprus, and you're a filmmaker. So you've put your career on hold to open up the ArtHouse. How has that affected you and the stories you wanted to tell?
I mean, it is, opening the ArtHouse was a great sort of, leveler, if you like. We were sort of kind of, responsible for, we could put on what we like. And we made it an effort to sort of kind of do stuff that was different, that had a story, that was diverse, all these wonderful things. But, even as when I was in film, directing plays, all that sort of stuff, writing our own stuff, it was always really, really difficult to get anything produced in those with our storylines. The storylines aren't about anything other than London stories.
Okay.
Greek London. It was, the series I wrote the first episode for was called Bubbles, because we were known as Bubbles, Bubble and Squeak Greek. And a line in the first episode is they called us Bubbles because they liked us. And that's the sort of kind of idea. And it was really difficult to get these things produced. I made it in the end.
Good on you.
And we had Marina Sirtis from Star Trek in it, and we had Peter Polycarpou, and it was a London story. And a friend of mine at the time, not a friend of mine, an acquaintance, Humphrey Barclay, was a big producer. He produced Desmond's, the wonderful sort of kind of West Indian sort of barbershop.
Oh, yes.
And he said, I sent him a rough cut. And he said, I'm going to get this produced. I promised I would get this produced. And he tried 3 months, 4 months into it. And he came back and he said, everyone seems to think it's a sort of kind of specialist audience. it's not for the masses. And I think that's what you get, you know, when you are in the business and you write something that is about your London, my London. It is not everybody else's London. The majority of people, it would be great, you know, but the gatekeepers, the people that produce these things, the people that say, yeah, we can get you a slot on Channel 4 or BBC, ain't going to give you that slot because they don't think it's going to appeal to a mass audience. You know, they want big numbers, but it's about London. You know, it's about people falling in love, out of love. It's about family. It's about all these wonderful things that, you know, everybody else's things are about. But specifically, if it's about a cultural reference, people seem to think it's a minority sort of interest kind of thing. So, yeah.
So when did you give this script, this idea over to your acquaintance that was a producer? What year was that?
That was 15 years ago.
So if you were to do the film now, or if you were to speak to someone like yourself who would have been your age back then now, what advice would you give them?
I think the idea is, I mean, what is wonderful now is there's so many different avenues that you can take what you produce, what you make. I wouldn't give them any other advice apart from the advice I gave myself. Is just get it together and make it. You know, don't put those barriers in front of you. You know, the barriers of, you know, let's take it to the BBC, let's take it to Channel 4, just make it, you know, in any means possible. And that's what I found is the advice I give all creatives now, you know, whatever industry they're in. It's so important to become that entrepreneur for yourself.
Yes.
Is to suddenly say, well, this is my worth. I can do this. I don't need to go for a job interview as a writer or as a director, because I will do it myself. And that way you build up your confidence, you build up your knowledge. And I think that's the most important thing is when everyone now is ticking those boxes and saying, okay, let's get some black writers or black actors or this, that and the other. You know, we're new to the game, you know, in that sense. Yeah. You know, we haven't had that experience that gives you that depth of knowledge to create something really interesting and exciting with the material that you have. So I think that's where it really sort of kind of is restrictive, is that we need to develop skills and we haven't had those opportunities to do that. I'm saying we, as the mass population. This is women, this is white working class, this is black and ethnics, Greeks, what have you, LGBT. We haven't been given those opportunities, and we are the majority of the population. So that's what's so ironic about this whole thing, and that's what's so annoying about this whole thing.
So it sounds like social issues are important to you.
Absolutely.
They're a big part of you. Yeah. So can you explain a little bit why you pay the national living wage? Is that to do with your social issues? Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you know, when I went into this, you know, the first year, I think, you know, before the Picture House was here, we made over £1 million in the first year. Wow. And that is so good. And yeah, so it was, you know, this was a gold mine until they turned up. But the idea that you were going to have such huge turnover and profit and not sort of pay your staff the minimum London living wage and give them minimum hours seemed absurd to me. You know, you cannot have a business. And if it had transpired that we did carry that on, you know, I would have liked to have been able to say, right, okay, we're a certain amount, like John Lewis, you know, a certain amount of the profits go is as additional bonuses to the staff, because that is the most important part of any business, is how you treat your staff.
Completely.
You know, and you know, the likes of, you know, the picture houses, the Everymans, and the, you know, all the other big chains, you know, don't follow that criteria. They carry on doing what they do. They don't pay the London living wage. And that's why it's such an unfair sort of system. You know, the idea that someone who is an independent decides, okay, I'm going to be, because this is my community, this is where I'm from, I'm going to make sure that everyone gets at least the London living wage, is important to me, you know, because it's my community.
Yeah.
Whereas corporates don't have that same tie. They don't care. You know, the less they pay, the happier they are.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where, you know, the difference between an independent cinema or this particular one, the ArtHouse, is to corporate sort of big moneyed. We live and die on what we take at the box office. They can carry on, you know, the Cineworld chain with the picture house were billions and billions of pounds in debt, and yet they were allowed to continue trading. We shuffled a lot, got rid of this, got rid of that, whereas we go in a few £100,000 in debt, we're in big trouble. You know, we can't just go and sort of to our bank and say, you know, we're going to lose millions of pounds here, so you better give us a few more quid to keep us going. We can't do that. So we are reliant on our community, and the people that invested in us were people from around here. You know, so it's all that's what's important about our high streets. You know, we have to keep independent people going. We can't just constantly have corporates that destroy everybody's sort of kind of values, if you like, you know, because they're not around here, you know.
So how do you see the whole kind of independent cinema houses versus the Cineworlds and the Everymans of this world? What do you think will happen in the future, and how those relationships will potentially work?
I think what's definitely happening in the film industry is there is fewer and fewer films and more screens. Because, you know, there's a lot of chains that have gone under, but someone's waiting to buy them up just to carry on that myth. And it's literally in the film industry a pyramid selling. We literally constantly buying screens because that keeps, you know, everyone thinking, they're doing so well, they're doing so well. But the truth of it is there's not enough films any longer. With streaming services, with the lack of production of films, you know, you haven't got enough films to put on all these screens. We've got about 20 screens in Wood Green. You know, what are you going to put on there? And it's the same here. You know, the idea, I think, what's going to happen, and you know, I'm just nobody. You know, each area is going to have their little art centre, and it's going to be an art centre. It's going to be, you know, 2 or 3 screens with a stage. And this is what we're doing in other parts of London and, you know, other parts of England, is developing these sort of brands that are, the ArtHouse is an independent, and it reflects its community, whether it's in Crouch End, whether it's in Barking, where we've got another one,
Right.
Harrow, we've got a couple outside of London, but they're going to be tuned in to everything about that community. And what is special is they will employ locally, they will create content locally, all these wonderful things that make a hub, an art hub, even a sort of little cottage industry of creatives being together. You know, whether you're a filmmaker, whether you're a music maker, whether you're a theatre maker, an artist, all these wonderful things, bringing that together makes somewhere far stronger. because and food as well. You know, it's not just about popcorn and just snacks. You have to sort of kind of visualize this as a place of destination for people throughout the day. So, you know, our older sort of clientele, you know, they come regularly, you know, every week during the day, because they know they're going to meet up with their mates. And the one wonderful thing about theatre and the wonderful thing about cinema is this collective audience, this, you know, we're all together watching the same thing. We're all experiencing that same thing. We laugh at the same time. We question, we empathize, you know, together. And together, I promise you, is a really wonderful sort of kind of experience. You know, for a while now, we've been doing these short films. Young filmmakers coming in and showing their short films. We do a festival and stuff like that. And being in a room with filmmakers that put their film up on that screen, and there's another 80 people in the audience, all wowing at the same time. It's just such a wonderful sort of kind of experience to be a part of. You know, I'm sitting there thinking, wow, is that it? Is that what I've created for these people? Just giving them the space to show their film, you know, gives them that sort of enthusiasm to go out and say, right, okay, what's the next story? And I think that's what it really is, and that's what independent sort of kind of spaces like the ArtHouse will bring, is that everyone's going to feel a part of that. Whatever part of the community you're from in Barking, you're going to be there. You can be a part of this. And I think that's what it is. And I don't think corporates, you know, that are, however big they are going to ever be able to reproduce that. You know, they're not going to produce the live music. They're not going to produce the spoken word in the room and hearing other people's views. It's all about, we have to sell tickets and popcorn. That's it, you know. And to be honest with you, we have to as well. But hopefully there is an alternative to just chasing that sort of constant, you know, Barbie, Oppenheimer kind of vibe, you know, that, absolutely. And we don't do a lot of these. Not because, to be honest with you, no one comes to see them here anyway. You know, because that's not our audience. Our audience are, you know, a little bit more socially aware, a little bit more caring about the community that they're from. And that's the people we get coming through our door, is conscientious, politicized, you know. I mean, our main little slogan has always been, as 'twere to hold a mirror up to nature, which is, you know, Shakespeare's sort of wonderful quote about what the arts are there for, is to reflect our communities and give voice to people that quite often don't. And a lot of the films that we do show, and the successful ones, are always about something, you know, something important.
So how do you see, the future of independent film in the UK? Are we going to get more stories talking about the things that are happening now, like say the crisis of living, the Brexit, which happened not recently but not too far away? Do you think we'll start seeing things about that?
I think we will. I mean, we do show an awful lot of sort of kind of foreign documentaries now, you know, but highlighting, you know, problems in Syria, problems here, problems there, you know, all of these wonderful sort of kind of stories that bring some hope. You know, they're not just sort of, oh, look, this is a news item. This is a narrative that has a sort of kind of depth. And I think that's what independent film is about, is someone says, right, okay, we've got to make this film. It's about this important topic, you know, let's do it. And that's what independent is. And, you know, when you consider the amount of millions that they spend on just advertising Barbie, for example, if you spent that money making really important, interesting stories, just think what would live culturally, what we'd have at our disposal. You know, you'd have so many wonderful stories, so many opportunities for actors, different as, right, they won't get paid as much.
Yeah.
But we'll have 20,000 stories instead of, just one.
Yeah.
Think of the employment, think of all that wonderful sort of kind of distribution of wealth, if you like. And I think that's what really the world is coming to that. The world knows that you just can't keep this pace. When Barbie was on, you could see Barbie in thousands of... They next door must have played it about 10 times a day. Wow. In the Wood Green, it must have been on 30 times a day. And you kind of think, that's unbelievable, But that's that sort of, this is an opportunity to make some money, let's, And it's just, all right, it was very successful. But the truth is, you don't have a Barbie every year.
No.
and that's the truth of it. And, it might have been successful and, great. But all those other things that we could be doing with that money, if someone said, all right, okay, let's just put a fraction of that into developing a few other stories about women, important stories about women, how other comedies, let's take a bit of that money and just spend it on something else, something alternative, Wow.
It's obvious you've got this cinema, your background and everything in film and theatre, former actor. It would seem strange to me if you never went behind the camera again to make a film. Are we going to see something from you soon in the future?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the series Bubbles, it might not be just about the Greek community, but definitely, when it was about London, and my passion is London.
Yeah.
I just love London, it's just that beauty of showing how who created this place, who's sort of kind of the influences in this place, nowhere, apart from New York, I suppose, and other sort of major cities, but London's just got this wonderful vibe about it, That's what I love about it. I love all those wonderful things, those very difficult things as well. That bringing groups together is not easy, especially in the years that I was growing up, when there was so much institutionalized bigotry, racism, misogyny. All this stuff is inbred in our communities. So I'm not saying it's not anywhere else, but here we can look at it and say, I see it within my own community or Greek community. I see all of those things that I'm fighting against now, and we're still fighting those. And I think that's where it's brilliant, is that you have to acknowledge, just by saying you're not racist, or just by saying you're not homophobic or misogynistic or this, isn't enough. It's got to be seen in people's actions and the institutions they're setting up. And art is the most important way that we can start reflecting that community and how we can deal with those issues. Because as I said, just by saying you're not racist, it's not enough. It's got to be acted on. You've got to show how we're going to do that. And art does that. Art enables you to do that. Stories enable you to do that. That's why I'm saying, Barbie, give some money to new filmmakers. Okay, just give it to women. Doesn't matter. And that's, and also my biggest passion is theatre, and there's a couple of things that I'm sort of kind of working on, combining theatre and film, which hopefully we'll be launching in Barking when we open our cinema there. so it's
when exactly will that be opened?
Well, the usual issues with developers and builders and stuff like that, but it is earmarked for February, March to 2024.
Excellent.
So next year.
I look forward to watching your stuff there. Thanks a lot, Sam.
Thank you, mate.
Have you thought of upgrading your cinematography game? Would you like to have an ASC cinematographer mentor you for free? Join veteran cinematographer Suki Medenzovic, ASC, Disney, Pixar, FX Networks, Netflix, American Horror Story, as he teaches you how to create beautiful images using 3 lighting techniques he has mastered on film sets over his 30-plus years in the film industry. Each technique uses basic, low-cost lighting equipment so that anyone can achieve beautiful visuals no matter your project's budget. If you want to take your cinematography to the next level, visit filmmakingconversations.com to sign up for instant access. If you like this podcast, share it with friends, leave a comment in the comments section, and hit the subscribe button. If you liked this podcast, share it with friends, leave a comment in the comment section, and hit the subscribe button.